At last, we are happy to announce that we have added Joomla custom field integration. Joomla custom fields are these fields that you see under users. It's like there's fields here and field groups, and the same under articles, fields and field groups, which basically targets the articles or the users respectively. If you add fields under the articles, when you create an article and it meets the specific criteria, the fields show up and you fill them in, it shows up on the front end of your website. Now, that whole field and field group concept has a integrative option for third-party components. So we have now changed JCB enough to allow that kind of field integration in your components. And all I'm going to do now is just demonstrate how to make use of this. So we'll just use the normal demo component. Basically, the way to add the fields to your demo component is to actually, you have admin views, and you're going to actually link the field to a admin view. You can link it to multiple admin views. But I'm going to demonstrate linking it to only this one called look. So you click on this edit here and basically go to the area where you link the look, the view to the component, and you'll see there's now a new field called Joomla fields. Select if the option to add Joomla fields should be added to the view. So we're just going to click that. That's really all you need to do to get it working in the back end. The front end has got a little bit more tricks to it, and that is to be expected because the front end of JCB components should be unique, and that was the approach. So we're going to close out of this, and before making any changes to the front end of the component, I'm just going to compile this and install it onto this current website to see what happened. So we've got the compiler here. We're going to just compile our component and install it, quite simple. And then we're going to open the component here. And when we go to looks, we'll see there are now looks fields and looks fields groups. So I'm going to create a group here quickly, say new, and say, let's say really easy, and save and close. So we got this group called really easy. I'm going to now create a field, and we're going to just make it a text field and call it simple field, and we're going to add it to the really easy group and save and close. So here we've got a field. If we now go to looks and click on new, we'll see that it has a new tab here called really easy, and we can click there and it's got a simple field. So we can say there the name, and just for the field we also give it a value and just call that input value and save and close. And immediately you have the input value stored, you got the name, and well, everything works exactly as expected. So it's created a tab, and if you've added a field, you can actually add more fields to this tab simply by selecting the same group, call it more fields, save and close, and now we've got more fields. If we go back to the look and open it, you'll see that now more fields are also showing up with more input. And that's how the custom field concept works. That's the easy part, basically adding it to the component. Now, like I said before, you could add it per admin view, but usually you would have one view where you add this. Now on the front end of this component, you'll need to do a little bit more, because the way that the fields work is explained as triggering on specific events on the front end of the component. Now we at JCB have also added the option to add these events to your site views, but it's a little bit hidden, and purposefully that way because we added it to the dynamic get area and not to the site view area. And it is because the dynamic get is targeting either multiple items or single items, and the events are really actually for single items. So it seemed right that we added there to easily validate and so forth. Anyway, so let's do that. You'd go to component builder, Joomla component builder, and you go to your custom or your dynamic gets. Now we want to add it to the looking, because it's a get item get. So we'll open this, and you'll see that now there is this new content plugin events which you can select. Now the fields, if we go back to the fields area, and you open the fields, you'd see that it has options, and it's here got automatic display option. So before display, after title, and do not automatically display. These options is what is used to actually display the values that's submitted to this field on the front end of the site. So basically you've got before display, after display, and do not automatic display, and even after title. Now by default it is before display, but you can obviously change that in the, so you need in your component to target these 4 events for the user to make use of these fields. Now they might decide no, they want to just use the fields in the back end, and it will basically be related onto this show on, and if you do that, it will not even show on the back. So yeah, this is sort of its integrative switches, but you need to target these switches only in your custom code on the front at this point, and it's not really that hard to do that. I'll show you why. So back in the dynamic get, I'm going to basically add title, add the before display, and add after display as events, and save and close. Now that will just practically put the code into your component. So let me first show you the code, how it looks now. So in the component folder, root folder, I'm going to components, and then I'm going to go to demo, and basically go to views, and then open looking, and then this view html.php file. Now the events are going to be added to the display function. So currently, as you can see, there's nothing here. So we're going to compile the component and see what changes. So just recap, I've just added the events to the dynamic get, and I'm going to the compiler, and I'm going to recompile the component and install it to see what those events, the changes, how that will change the code. So it's okay, we're going to go here. If we scroll down now, we'll see that it added the dispatcher to the display, and down here it imports the content plugin now, and creates in the item object, it creates a new object called event, and then basically it checks whether your item has parameters. So it checks, is there any params being passed? That is in your dynamic get. You could grab the params column from your items, and it's basically checking, is it there? If it's not there, it's going to fall back onto the globals. So if it's there and if it's adjacent, it will basically convert it to an array and add it there, or it'll fall back to the global params, and then it is going to trigger the on after title and on content before display and on content after display, and it's going to pass the component's name and the actual view value here. But now we know that this is basically setting the context of this event. Now you could be building a plugin that is actually targeting look and not looking, and you want to change the context of this specific event that's being passed over here. And to do that, we've also added a context field in the site view. So your site view can change its context. So let me show you. So we'll just open the site views, and in the site views we have that view called looking. We can open that, and here we now have a new field called context. So we have looking selected here as our dynamic get, and here we can set the context to suit the dynamic get and not fall back to the main code. If you don't add this context, it will fall back to this code name. But you could say I want the context to be look and not looking, and then save and close, and if we compile this again, it will actually update the context of that specific event and any other event related to that to that get, and which is really what you want. So now you'll see it's changed it to look. So it'll still pass the component's name, but the correct context in relation to your event. And now what is going to happen, why we want this to be look, is because the fields are linked to the look view, the look admin view, and so it is stored in the database under this context and not under the context of looking. But you are basically having both here on the front, so you couldn't use the name look again, you had to use another name. And so the way to then actually get that same context called on your title and is to actually change it like I've just done. I know that's a lot of explanation, and so maybe some of you don't even understand what I've just said, but those who do will know, oh great, this is nice. You can change the context through the site view so that you could have the same context be triggered multiple times as you would have it. It's a little bit of a tweak at the moment. We might bring more automation in, but I know it's actually a little liberating, so you could really be free in how you want to do this. But what now is going to happen is these events are being triggered and the values are being stored here. So whatever gets thrown back from the plugins gets placed into this value here. And so the only custom code that you now actually need to do after fixing up the events being added to the dynamic get and then updating the context to target the correct view. Now, just again, I'll show you just once again, why do I want this to be look? If we go to our admin view, we'll see that if you open looks and then click here, you'll see here at the top, it says demo and the view is look. And so the context of these fields are linked to that value and that value. So this one is always going to be correct, but this one could be different. And so you need to, in your site view, make sure that you're targeting the correct context of where these fields are. So you'll be passing basically the ID and this context, and Joomla will automatically retrieve the values of these fields and place those values for you inside of this object here, or actually it will create a string. As you see here, it implodes the array into a string and places it in here. So all you now would need to do is basically echo out those values in a way you want them to look. So you could you could add it in some div tags or whatever, and I'll show you that in a moment. So for now, all I wanted to explain is how these events actually get the field values on the page. And so those field values are loaded into these values respectively of its switches, which I showed you earlier in setting up the field. Now our Joomla website currently is not set up to show the looks, so we're going to go to the menu and change that, going to main menu, and I'm going to click here on home, and I'm going to select let's see, where's a demo looks, and yeah, that's basically it. And I'm going to save and close out of that. So now we have the looks on the page, the default page of the website. So if we click here, it should load, and there it is, the name. So you see a list of looks, and here's the name. If we click on that, it shows us the name, and it shows us there's been one hit. If we refresh that, it shows 2 hits. So that all works well, but our custom values, which we've submitted, is not showing up. So this value is showing up, and even we could add some description. And this is also going to show up if we refresh the page here. There's the description, and we click here, there's the description. So all that is showing up, but the real easy values are not showing up, and we want them to also be showing up on the page. And that's what we are going to do for them by simply using those event objects. So over here we have the content after display, content before display, and content after title. Now, if you forget how to use this or how to place this, the component that you could go to is this content component, and you can also open its article view, and you would see something very similar. Scroll down here, you'd see something, well, unless they've changed it by the time, but at this time the default of Joomla's implementation is very much the same. So it's also triggering the content, and it's also placing it into these values, which means that if you go to its template default PHP, you will see places basically you could search for it. So you could take this after title, copy that, come over here and place it in there, and here you see basically the content is generated by the content plugin event on, and it basically just echoes it out. So you could use this code just like that, copy paste it into your component after the title, and the same goes with the other events. So with the before display and after display. So let me do that quickly. I'm going to just grab these and place them into our component. So I've just copied them to a notepad like that. I'm going to move them to my other screen, and then I'm going to go back to JCB and go to my component, the side view of the component, and I'm going to open looking, and in the component we have a whole lot of things happening here. Basically we have an article comment here, and over here is the title. So we want that value to actually echo out after the title. So we're going to take that first one, which is the event after the title, and I'm going to place it between the header and this div here. So basically place it there. So that's the content is generated by and it's on content after title. So this is the title, and then it's going to show over here. Then we have another one on content before display. Now the content on before display, I would like to think it needs to go first before anything. So I want to put that there on before anything displays. That's way at the top. And with content after display, I want to put that obviously at the very end below everything. So that's quite simple. We could do more. We could wrap it in a div, we could do all kinds of styles to it, but that's the simplest way, and I'm just going to demonstrate that. So save and close here. and then basically compile it again, install, and now let's go refresh that page. Whoops, we got some errors here. I realize it's because I'm using slightly different names than the ones I copied from the the article area, content area. So let me show you that. So they are saying up here in the comment on content before display, and here it's before display content. It's like a little different. So I'm using exactly the same. So just heads up, use the same as what is here in the comment. And that's a little me always trying to keep everything the same. Anyway, we save that, it should work now. So here we go, simple fields, input value, more fields with more input. There are those values displayed on the front. So if we go back here, we can close this out and go back to the fields, and let's say with the more fields, we want to change that to display after the title. We'll save and then go back to the front and refresh this, and so now the one is up here and the other one is after the title. So let's say we want simple field to actually show at the very end of our value. We go out of more fields, we go to simple field, and we change that to after display, save and close. So you could move the values position simply, and everyone will move. Now you see that simple field is below everything, and if you realize this whole area here is the block. So that's how the custom fields can come to the front. You can also say, I don't want this area to show up, and you can go to the fields, simple field, and you could say show label, hide label, and save. And now if you refresh it, it'll only give you the value. So that's the kind of behavioral integration. So that's a quick demonstration of how to now use Joomla custom fields in your components, and how to then model those values into the front end by simply making use of the events. And well, have fun. I'm sure this will make things even more interesting. Thanks for watching.